Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading, and you are tuned in, if you didn't know already, to our podcast entitled Swiss America, The Secret War on Cash. And we are today going to be talking with Chris Agelastos, my frequent co-host. Chris, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
And we're not only going to be talking to and with Chris Agelastos, but we're going to be talking about a topic that has gotten quite a bit of traction on our podcast, and that is BRICS.
Yep.
And BRICS it's kind of been interesting because in the time that we've been covering it through this podcast, it's experienced more growth than most things that our economy has seen in the last year, to be safe.
For sure.
And, before we get into the first article, in fact, one of the things that caught my eye, and I wasn't aware of this, Chris, and I don't know, maybe you were, in all the time that we've talked about this, BRICS actually was kind of officially established in 2001. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I remember reading that, and they didn't grow really at all for the longest time. It was just they were kind of a non-issue, and now, of course, in the last year or so, they've been growing like wildfire.
Yeah, well, it was officially started, and it was really like what do they call? Well, an intergovernment organization is what they called it, and it was something they were really trying to just grow their economies, basically. Again, started in 01, and then kind of started getting a little better traction in 2010. And then, to your point, in the last year or two, it's really kind of taken off.
Yeah.
And the reason I really wanted to kind of start by mentioning this is that, for most people, and to some extent, I put myself in this category, it wasn't until the last year or two where BRICS was kind of showing up on the radar, and it was like, okay, well, what's this all about? What's going on here? And I think what's significant about it, it's kind of, it's been around for a long time, and it has a little bit of a history to it, and it's only been recently because their message to those who are becoming involved in it is pretty sound, it's pretty solid, so it's gaining in attention, notoriety, popularity more and more every day. So now, with that said, you look at and there's so many different facets or aspects to BRICS as well. Well, this article is now talking about how BRICS BRICS calls its payment system a global bombshell as it nears arrival. Global bombshell. There's no really mild way of phrasing or stating that, a global bombshell. So I'm not even going to talk, Chris. Why don't you tell us what this global bombshell is all about?
Well, so they've basically created their own electronic payment system that they can use between member nations for trade. And what this will do is allow these BRICS nations to enter and use trade agreements with each other without having to involve the US dollar at all. And up until this point, most nations needed to use our currency in order to trade goods and services. And so that made the dollar very popular. And part of the reasons was because the dollar has been the reserve currency of the world for a long time now. We've been overall very stable, especially compared to other nations' currencies. However, in the last, pretty much the last decade, certainly the last several years, the dollar has lost a lot of that stability. We're also using it a lot for sanctions. As Putin said, if it wasn't this article, it was another one I was reading where he said, we're not really dumping the dollar. The dollar has sort of dumped us, which I wouldn't say that's entirely true, but I understand his point. When the U.S. put sanctions on Russia at the beginning of the Ukraine conflict, as we've done with other nations, Iran, obviously, over the years, we have sort of weaponized the dollar and used our leverage to influence world politics. And these nations are tired of that. So they have now decided to create their own electronic payment system to make these transactions even easier. kind of like the SWIFT system that the U.S. Has used internationally for years. And now it's expected to arrive maybe even in the next few months here. They're saying possibly before year end, this is going to be up and running. Yeah. And Russia and India, they're
at their summit is where they may actually.
And I think that's in October, if I remember right. So, soon, right around the corner. So, and they're pushing, Russia and India are pushing even more trade relations with each other without the US dollar. So this could really help accelerate that. And what I kind of worry about, though, and obviously none of this is great news for the dollar, but what I'm kind of seeing is that the world is splitting between two groups. And it's looking like it's going to be, you're either with the U.S. or you're part of BRICS. And I kind of worry that we could go back to, something similar to the relations we had during the Cold War, where we were these superpowers, and it was the U.S. and Russia, USSR fighting back then, or trying to take over different parts of the world and kind of control things. And I worry that it could be, maybe not our two nations, but these two groups that kind of battle against each other. And Russia has China on its side, which is a big ally and who produces a lot of the goods we use here in the U.S., as we found in COVID when people all of a sudden realized that a lot of our medical supplies aren't even made here in the U.S. anymore, and some of our prescription medicines and things. And when COVID hit, China said, "Hey, we need to hold those for our people." And so it's not a good thing, no matter how you slice it. It's not good to really have this much division starting to grow, in the world.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, these alliances, these allies that have been the alliances or these nations who have become allies with one another.
Mm-hmm.
The sense that I've gotten, again, especially over the last year that we've been talking about this, it's the United States against the rest of the world. I mean, that's what it's literally shaping up to be.
Yeah.
And it's because, the dollar has reigned supreme in the eyes of most of the world, and somewhat justifiably so. The dollar's kind of been able to bully all the other nations and all the other nations' currencies and economies because of what the United States of America represented. As we still are the greatest nation in the world, the vulnerabilities we have with our debt, our deficits, and now you've got the rest of the world saying, we don't want anything to do with your dollar anymore. We're looking to get into something that is going to help bolster our domestic economy,
right.
Something that with BRICS, the part of the allure is developing their own currency system that has some kind of a gold backing to it, which offers better stability and security. And that's what kind of becomes of concern, is that they're not just saying, hey, we don't like the dollar, we want something else. They've got reasons they don't, and they've got solutions to those reasons they don't like the dollar, and their solutions are viable. So with that said, what do you do? Well, I wanted to kind of end this podcast talking about in this next article here, how gold, you talk about the summit, which we believe for BRICS is going to be in October. By October, this expert predicts that gold is going to reach $3,000 an ounce. Now, for those of you tuning in, gold prices right now have just topped the $2,500 an ounce mark, setting all-time highs. And we're in the month of August. So you're talking only a few months away before they're saying gold prices are going to hit 3,000. And so this is an excellent time and an excellent opportunity to get a position in gold if you haven't already, which you can do by calling our office or contacting us online. But the bottom line is that there's a double benefit to owning gold. And this is talking in terms of a price point from an investment standpoint. But really, one of the great advantages is you have diversification, you have something physical, you have something tangible that if push comes to shove out there, things get tough in the economy, it's something you can literally go lay your hands on. But on top of that protectionary side, the investment side, which clients even this year have already been able to take advantage of, because if you go back into our podcast towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, gold prices were at 2,000. Now we're looking
Yep.
at 2,500. So why is
Yeah.
gold going to $3,000 an ounce? At least wise according to this expert, Chris.
Yeah, well, some of the big things, inflation, which we've been battling, even though it's come down a little bit this year versus last year, it's still increasing, higher than we want it to be. BRICS, obviously, putting pressure on the dollar, and as the dollar weakens, tangible items like gold cost more. You have to use more of your weaker dollars to buy an ounce than you used to. And then obviously, international tensions, whether it's Russia and Ukraine or now Israel and Iran, things are heating up there, and there's a lot of concern there. And so gold has always been, at least for thousands of years. So it's always been considered the safest place in tough times, and we certainly have some tough times ahead of us right now. So sure, it's nice to just make money. I mean, I'm happy that gold prices have been climbing. I've been fortunate enough to buy throughout the years, and people are always so focused on these price jumps. We're at 2,500 now. They're saying we can see 3,000 in the next couple of months. But what if it takes 6 months or 8 months to get to that number? It doesn't really matter, because we know where it's going. We know it's going to consistently grow over time. So I always tell people, just get in when you can. Start buying when you can. Don't worry too much about the price. If you're buying and you're holding for the long term, which most of our clients are, they're looking for that safety. There really isn't a bad time to get in if you're holding for the long term. And the other thing too, gosh, I mean, I remember it doesn't seem like that long ago that gold had just hit 1,000 an ounce. Well, for it to go from 1,000 to 2,000, it had to double in value, and it did that consistently. Now to go from 2,500 to 3,000, it's only a 20% jump in the price. So as the dollar amount gets higher, it's even easier to hit these big numbers. If we double now, we're going to be at 5,000. When we hit 5,000, when it doubles, it's going to now be at 10,000. So you're going to see a more rapid pace as these numbers get higher. So just get in while you can. You don't have to have a lot of money. That's what a lot of people, I think, don't realize, is they think they need to be wealthy in order to buy some gold. I mean, I have regular clients that invest a few $100s at a time buying smaller size gold coins, or even silver coins, until they can work their way up to gold. So it doesn't take a lot of money. We'll help anyone. We'll help educate you first, help you figure out why this makes sense, make sure that it does make sense for you, and walk you through the process at whatever dollar amount you're comfortable with, and just build on that over time. And mark my words, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, you're going to look back and be happy that you made an investment in something sound that has such a solid track record.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned how you remember gold hitting that price of $1,000 an ounce,
Mm-hmm.
and we just actually recorded some new commercials with one of our spokespeople, our main spokesperson, the man Pat Boone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the commercials, when gold was trading, that we ran, that aired on all the television networks, etc., gold was selling for 600 an ounce,
Mm-hmm.
and Pat was encouraging people, listen, gold's on its way to 1,000, get in. And it is true. I mean, it's not a necessarily a straight shot up, and you don't want that
Mm-hmm.
in any kind of investment. I mean, when I started in 1992, gold was resting at the 300 levels. Close to 2000, it actually took a dip down to, I believe, roughly 250 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's just been, and it kind of was sitting in that. What it was competing against back then was a big run up in real estate, a big run up with the dot coms, and that was attracting all the investment attention.
Mm-hmm.
And even, in fact, there's been some that said, and I would probably agree with this, one reason that gold's probably not much higher than it is right now is that an investment, I'm going to call it distraction, was cryptos and Bitcoin and things of that nature, that digital currencies, excuse me. People were
Mm-hmm.
looking for different alternatives, but gold has just always kind of trudged along. And especially when you look at these weakening factors that are affecting our economy today. So
Mhm.
Pat Boone has said buy gold. He's been telling you to buy gold since it was in just merely the few $100s an ounce. And he's telling you, I can tell you with our recent commercial, he's telling you right now that it is a time to buy gold. And so if you haven't already, contact our office. As I mentioned a moment ago, you can do it by contacting us, 1-800-289-2646 by telephone, or if you'd like to, you can visit us online, ask for request some information there at www.swissamerica.com. Thanks, Chris, for all the info. Thanks for those of you who have been tuned in. And if you're not subscribed to this podcast, please do so, as we'd love to talk with you more in the future. Have a great rest of your day.